You know, when we picture the 18th century, we tend to think of elegant balls, powdered wigs, all very proper. But what if we could actually go on a road trip through that time? Well, we're going to do just that, using a classic novel as our time machine. And, just a heads up, it's not going to be pretty.
Right. So what was it really like to travel through Georgian Britain? Forget the romantic paintings for a minute. We're going to peel back that veneer and get right into the noisy, the smelly, and honestly, the gloriously chaotic reality of it all. So how are we going to see all this? Well, our guides are the Bramble family, from Tobias Smollett's novel, The Expedition of Humphry Clinker. It's all told through their letters, and believe me, their totally conflicting perspectives are the perfect window into a Britain that was changing at lightning speed.
First up, let's meet our main tour guide, the patriarch, Matthew Bramble. He is a grumpy, health-obsessed Welsh squire who, and I'm not exaggerating here, sees decay, disease, and disappointment around every single corner. His endless complaints are basically our critical lens on the whole era.
And then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you've got his niece, Lydia Melford. She's young, she's naive, she's a total romantic. So where her uncle sees nothing but filth and corruption, Lydia sees excitement, beauty, and the absolute peak of fashion. And for our, let's call it the ground-level view, we have the maid, Winifred Jenkins. Her letters back home are just incredible. They're full of hilarious misspellings and total misunderstandings, and they give us this brilliant, unfiltered look at the sheer shock and awe that ordinary people felt.
Okay, first stop on our tour, the famous spa town of Bath. Back in the 18th century, this was the place to be. It was all about health, high society, you get the picture. But you have to wonder, was it really as glamorous as its reputation?
Picture this. The center of it all was the pump room. This is where everyone, and I mean everyone, came to drink the famous healing waters. It was just a chaotic social free-for-all where dukes and butchers were literally rubbing elbows. A noisy, crowded, fashionable mess.
Now, everybody was there for this water, right? It was supposed to cure everything from gout to scurvy, but our man Matthew Bramble, our resident cynic, he wasn't so sure. He just had to investigate what was really floating around in those so-called healing waters. And what he found was, well, it was horrifying. He saw a sick kid with open sores just bathing with everybody else. He figured out that the water people were drinking was probably contaminated with the runoff from the baths, what he called the scourings of the bathers. He even found that one of the springs was basically being filtered through an old cemetery. Yeah. Suddenly, taking the waters sounds a little less appealing, doesn't it?
All right, next up, the family heads to London. And to Matthew Bramble, this wasn't some marvel of civilization. Oh no, it was a sprawling, chaotic monster, a city of unbelievable wealth right next to unimaginable filth. Lydia, of course, is absolutely enchanted. She describes the famous Ranelagh pleasure gardens like it's a magical paradise, a glittering world of music and fashion. For her, this is the center of the entire universe.
But her Uncle Matthew? He looks at the exact same place and sees a completely pointless, mindless spectacle. He describes people just endlessly walking in a circle, not even talking, just showing off like blind asses in an olive mill. Ouch.
And that pretty much sums up their whole time in London. You've got these two polar opposite views. For Lydia, it's a dream come true. For Matthew, it's basically a public health nightmare where people are paying money to get sick in damp, crowded gardens.
Seriously, Matthew's letters from London read like a health inspector's report from hell. He's complaining about breathing polluted air, drinking river water that's basically an open sewer, and eating food that's been doctored with poison just to make it look a better color. For him, the physical rot of the city was just a perfect reflection of its moral rot.
So for the last leg of their tour, the family heads north, into Scotland. Now you have to remember, for a lot of English folks at the time, this was like traveling to a foreign, maybe even uncivilized land.
And you can really feel the prejudice they're carrying with them. Matthew's sister Tabitha was so convinced by all the English stereotypes that she was genuinely afraid they would starve. She actually demanded they pack their own food before they crossed the border. But the reality of Scotland, as they find out, is way more complex and, well, often more pungent. Winifred Jenkins gives us this absolutely unforgettable street-level description of how sanitation worked in Edinburgh's tall apartment buildings. Every single night, the city's chamber pots were just emptied right out the window. And that cry, Gardy Lou, is such a fantastic historical detail. It's almost certainly a version of the French phrase, gardez l'eau, which means watch out for the water. It was a leftover from the old alliance between Scotland and France, and a very, very practical warning for anyone walking the streets at night.
The trip also doesn't shy away from the complicated politics after the 1707 Act of Union. Through the arguments of a Scottish character they meet, the novel really digs into the deep sense of loss some Scots felt, while also showing the strategic gains England got out of the deal. So, after all the bad food, the dirty water, and the constant family squabbles, what's the big takeaway here? Well, this journey is way more than just a trip. It's like a social X-ray of a nation going through some massive, massive changes. What did the author really want us to see through the eyes of this completely dysfunctional family? He's showing us a country that's grappling with what it even means to be modern.
Every stop on their journey just pulls back the curtain on one of the nation's growing pains. Bath shows the total hypocrisy of high society. London reveals the pollution and alienation that comes with city growth. And Scotland forces them to confront their own prejudices. The whole thing really is a commentary on the birth of a new, chaotic, consumer-driven Britain.
And in the end, by giving us Matthew's grumpiness, Lydia's romanticism, and Winifred's pure confusion, the novel shows us that history isn't just one clean story. It's a messy, contradictory, amazing collection of personal experiences. There's no single objective truth about 18th century Britain. There are only their truths.
Which, of course, leaves us with one last question to chew on. If Matthew, Lydia, and Winifred were to take a tour through our world today, with its social media, its 24-hour news, its global culture, what on earth would they write home about? What wonders and what horrors would they report back? What would be our Gardy Lou?